أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. I want to take this opportunity once again to welcome our audience, both the physical and the virtual, for making time to be with us in this evening of Tuesday. Today, inshallah, we want to look at another topic, which is one of the fundamental topics, and that is a follow-up topic on what we started last time concerning compatibility. And we are going to look at the legal and the customary considerations. Let me start with the background. Our societies and our families, to a great extent, developed structures and systems which took care of many of the marriage concerns. Once upon a time, there used to be a system whereby a woman or a man who intends to get married was not supposed, or he was not meant, to pick his or her choice on his or her own. There used to be a structure, there used to be a system through which a partner can pass through in order to check the compatibility of that partner before a final decision could be taken. Let me use a simple example here in Buganda. What used to be the system during that time was that in case a young man or a young woman has gotten a person who is interested in, especially a young woman, could not, first of all, make the decision alone. That is number one. Number two, there was no any way that she could take that proposal direct to her parents. There used to be a system whereby such a young woman could approach her paternal aunt, and then they have a discussion. After agreeing on certain issues, the paternal aunt, after being satisfied that this is a person who can be presented to the next levels, then the paternal aunt could forward it to the father. And then the father could also scrutinize the matter, and after that they could make arrangements so that they can meet that particular family. That used to be the system. In other words, marriages during that time were being arranged at a family versus a family. And in order to ensure compatibility, there used to be some issues or some elements that they could look at. Number one, it is humanity. To what extent is that family which is interested to come into our family, to what extent are they humane? That used to be one of the greater consideration. What about hard work? Isn't it a family that has been commonly known to be a lazy family? What about religious practice? And I would like to couple this with religious education. During that time, some people could actually be allowed to get married in some families simply because of their content, simply because of their levels of religious education. The Bawalimus can testify to this. As you know, the background of the Bawalimus, or the background of those who studied religious knowledge, they used not to be people who were enjoying such a high social status in the family. But they could go to families of higher social classes, and they could be admitted. They could be allowed. And this is where you find out that actually many of them, they were getting partners not because they were rich, not because they were commanding such higher respect in their communities, but simply because they were commanding religious education. And there are many, many examples to that. On the other side, they used to disregard, they used to isolate some families which were known of any historical evil, any historical crime, or any habit. For instance, if the family from which the man has come from has ever been associated with the committing of suicide, they could not accept that person to be compatible with their family. If, for instance, a certain family was in one way or another was associated with the habit of cannibalism, theft, among others, they could reject such kind of proposal. They also went ahead to prohibit some close relatives. They used to prohibit marriage to some close relatives. This is where you get an extension to include the issue concerning totems. That's what we call a miziro. You find out that, for instance, any woman who is sharing the same totem with my mother is taken to be my mother, and therefore we are not compatibles. I cannot marry her. Any person whom I share with the same totem, that is a lady, she's my sister, and therefore I'm not allowed to marry such. And we shall be looking at the Islamic perspective on that. But when we look at compatibility, specifically, what do we mean? First, it is a follow-up discussion, as we said. It is part of examining the legal capacity. Last time we are examining the marriage age, and we looked at it in length. Now, compatibility in Arabic is called kafa'a. Are you compatible with the other partner? Compatibility refers to equality. It refers to similarity between a prospective husband and a prospective wife in certain socio-economic aspects. Are you compatible? This is the situation whereby you can examine, you can evaluate yourself before you could actually go ahead and agree on a certain proposal, or you can go ahead to conclude the marriage ceremony. That is why there are certain aspects which people used to look at. Are you of the same dignity, for instance? Are you not going to go into marriage with someone whom at a later stage you shall feel ashamed to move with such a person in public? What about the social status? Is that person presentable? Or you are like going into a situation whereby you are married with someone, but when you are going to social parties and so on, you don't want the public to acknowledge and recognize that this is your partner. That is why the issue of compatibility is so serious. What about the moral values? You know, we come from different training backgrounds. We come from different moral orientations. There are certain things whereby in your background they were known to be okay. For instance, in some families, a woman can squat or she can stand while greeting the husband. In some families, this is not acceptable. So imagine if these two get married, you are going to find a situation whereby this one is looking at this as a wrong and the other one is looking at it as right, and there is no problem with that. What about the financial status? When you look at these elements, this is what made even scholars of Islam to discuss this issue of compatibility. That before you could conclude the marriage contract, ask yourself, am I compatible with so and so? What are the justifications for considering compatibility? The major justification here is Islam is after ensuring harmonious coexistence. That is after marriage. And as I have said, and I'm still emphasizing, that you are free to socialize, you are free to appear in the public without being offended, among others. Also, to ensure complementary roles. I'm a lecturer at a university. I would feel more comfortable to marry someone who has attained at least a master's degree, so that in case I am overwhelmed by some academic work, by some administrative work, she can help. But can you imagine getting married to someone who cannot even read the script in your profession? There used to be some jokes that are being cracked, that once you marry a person whose educational level is low, then you have to protect and safeguard your transfer tightly. Because at one moment, they'll get surprised that she can use them to lead the stove. Oh yes, it is possible, because she actually doesn't know the value, she doesn't know the content, and that is why justification has been taken to be important. Now, with that background, this brings us to a question. What are the categories of compatibility? What are the categories of uniformity? You will allow me to take my own approach because I didn't find it in any books. To me, I categorize compatibility into two. One, there is what we call the complementary, optional compatibility. It is up to you to take it or to disregard it. It is up to you to go with it because, after all, it is your right, or also it is your right to forego it. These are the positive compatibilities which might be considered or they might be foregone. In fact, even as far as Islam is concerned, it is up to you. You can choose to say that, let me go with him, or let me go with her, or you can choose to say, no, in any way, I must consider this. So this is a complementary, and this is an optional compatibility. It is up to you to take it, to consider it, or not to consider it. The second is the necessary, the obligatory compatibility. I would like to prepare our audience here when we are looking at the necessary obligatory compatibility. There are some issues where, whether you want it or not, that person will never be compatible to you in Sharia. We are going to look at some of them, including what is the Islamic perspective on conducting nikah with a woman known to be pregnant. Is a pregnant woman compatible for marriage? And many other issues that we are going to look at. Now, quickly, let us start by looking at the optional compatibility, which you can choose to take or you can forego it. The majority of the Muslim scholars are of the opinion that some of these considerations that we are going to look at, actually you can ignore them. It is up to you.
Doctor, before we continue.
Yes.
You are taking us through the categories of compatibility, and we are looking at the optional one and the obligatory one.
Yeah.
The optional one you can take, or you can give a second choice. The obligatory one, you will take us through what it is a must.
Yeah.
that it is a must. Now my question is, I don't know whether I can give another word to the word compatibility, whether it qualifies your... Can I say that who is the right one for me? Can that address compatibility? Like, is she the right one? Is he the right one? If I add, because the word compatibility looks to be doctorish, like, so I want it in my sister's way. Can I say it?
Not really. It's not who is right for me.
To you, what is compatibility?
Compatibility,
the one you are taking,
is a uniformity between the partners that can ensure a harmonious marriage life. You know? Okay. It is uniformity. Are we uniform? You know, some kind of similarities between the two. Of course, when I come into the detail, it shall be more clear. But at that level, there are certain considerations in Sharia which, whether you want it or not, you must consider them. Then others, it is your choice. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't forget, whether optional, whether compulsory, the objective was to ensure that the marriage life is harmonious. There might be some kind of magic, by the way. You might choose someone whom 100% you are not compatible. Even by the time you are leaving your family, people are like, let us include him in dua, or let us include her in dua. Then Allah brings his own miracles, and actually things work out. People start saying that, we never expected that this lady can be under that man even for 1 year. But now you are proceeding, it is 5 years, it is 10 years, and then life continues. But the scholars didn't want to leave this matter for granted. They wanted to give you some kind of safeguards, some kind of guarantees. If you choose to take them, then they might be helpful, even though it is also not a guarantee that when you choose someone who is compatible, that everything is going to be as desired. I hope that one is clear now. Now, what are some of the considerations? Consideration number one is religious commitment and practice. How many times have we emphasized this? Even in the prophetic hadith, whereby he said that choose the religious one. Choose the one who is committed, because whenever you have someone who is closer to you as far as respect to faith, respect to religious rites and practices, you are likely to move longer. You are likely to be in a happier life than a person whom, for instance, you are saying that, let's go for salah. And it's like, my dear, Allah looks at my heart. You are not the judge, among others. Chances are high that along the way, you are going to have misunderstandings and the marriage relationship is going to come to an end. That's why this has been so much emphasized by almost all scholars. Number two, the socio-economic status, you know, as I have just talked about. I have just talked about it. Socio-economic status is wide. You know, our orientation is different. Starting from the home in which you are, the kind of facilities that you have in your home are not actually the facilities that I, who grew in a rural area, I am having. MashaAllah, you have grown up in such a family whereby the fridges are there, the wide screen is there, you take what you want, you are fond of parties almost on every weekend, and now you want to get married to someone who has never experienced such. So socio-economic status here, it can affect. Then, the schools that you went to. When you look at this also, the school life is also affecting us. Because you know, the corporate culture. Just to have like a simple example here. A person who went through Islamic University in Uganda for his or higher education is not having the same orientation, university orientation, like someone who went for public institutions. What you feel that it is important here, it is not actually important to him. So when the two of you get married, chances are high that you are going to have misunderstanding on some issues whereby for you, they are not becoming, they are not okay, and for him it is okay. Then, the definition of quality. What constitutes quality, for instance? What is quality dressing? You know? What is, if you want, for instance, to go for parties, how do you look at it? All these are issues that come under the social consideration of the socio-economic status. What about the networking and socialization groups? You know, because we are having different orientations, you are going to find out that even the people we relate with are different. So, you can consider the situation like after marriage, someone tells you that, please, I'm not comfortable with your friends. And for you, these are the friends that you grew up with, and you are actually very comfortable with them. Which kind of entertainment? For instance, some young people are, they are having, they are fans of music. Then others are not. What about the stories that you are going to share? You know, sometimes you are married to someone and the kind of stories talking about, to you, they are just boring stories. So, it is another aspect that you need to look at, the socio-economic status. Another point is freedom from defects. Physical defects. If, for instance, you are not having any physical defect, are you comfortable to marry someone who is having a certain physical defect like a blindness? Like the person is dumb? A person may be suffering from such serious illnesses like a leprosy? Among others. So the scholars addressed these matters, but don't forget that these are among the optional considerations. You might say, I have no problem to marry someone who is blind. But at the same time, you should also be ready to be patient with such a person. What about the age difference? You know, this is one of the matters that is debatable. Some time back, the emphasis was the age difference should be around, if the man is, let's say 30, the woman should be around 25. That used to be an acceptable one. It is acceptable. But as situations changed these days, by the way, parents are now more comfortable to place their young daughters or their daughters in the hands of those who have experienced. And that's why these days don't get surprised that the rate at which young ladies are getting into polygamous relationship is high. Because parents now feel some kind of guarantee. But these young boys who have not yet experienced, you know, something small, it culminates into a misunderstanding, then I have sent you back. So, how do you look at the age difference? As you might be comfortable with someone whereby the age difference is not so wide, but also think about the other side whereby a person whose age difference maybe it is 10 years, 15 years, might be, by the way, an understanding man, and so on and so forth. Then look at issues like civilization, among others. So, these are some of the issues that scholars looked at. Of course, I have also talked about the educational level. You know, all of us, especially that we have gone to school, you feel that when you go back home with someone who is below your education level, even the family is like, it is not welcoming it. Now, my take here is, some cases, or in some cases where these matters have been considered, they have worked out. In some cases, they have worked out. That you are a university graduate, you also married a university graduate, things are okay. But also, in some cases, actually, they have failed. You know? Because if we overemphasize on the issue of compatibility, one, there's some kind of promotion of materialism. If you are coming from a family whereby it is a rich family, you don't want a man from a poor family to come. In this case, you are promoting materialism. Not only that, but I am aware of certain countries, especially in Asia, whereby women have died and been buried with their virginities because they did not get their compatibles. In other words, a woman stays in the parent home under the pretext, or the pretense that no one has come to us who is compatible. Such situations have taken place. Now, in the era of women emancipation, in the era of equality, there are certain situations which have come on board. In my physical class, I could see some students of the law school. Go and talk to them. If you try to carry out a simple survey, you might find out that the majority of lawyers, they actually don't want to marry fellow lawyers. What is the problem if we are talking about compatibility? In other words, if I'm a lawyer and you are also a lawyer, chances are high that we shall reach the conclusion easily, isn't it? It would have been like that. But actually the opposite. Lawyers are not comfortable to marry fellow lawyers because they are worried that their home is going to be turned into a courtroom whereby cross-examination. This time, examination in chief. This time, adduce evidence. This time, the burden of proof. This time, fair trial. So, a fellow lawyer says, I'd rather go for a social scientist. I'd rather go for social work. I even rather go for a senior 6 graduate. Those situations have taken place, and I think you're witnesses to this. Accountants might not be interested to marry fellow accountants. Even when you come to us who trained in religious education, very few sheikhs actually are comfortable to marry sheikhats. Yet you could think that this is compatibility. The moment I say, Qala Allahu Ta'ala, the sheikhat will just say, Allah has said. But we are worried also that our homes can be turned into having 2 muftis in one home. A mufti? I issue a religious decision or verdict, she also issues the other. I say it is time for salah. Then she says, but Dhuhri's time is somehow expanded. So we are having 2 muftis in home. So at the end of the day, we are likely to clash over some matters, and then at the end of the day, our marriage is not going to be harmonious. At this point, I want to caution families to try as much as possible, especially to have one madhab, to have one school of thought that they are following. Some of the cases that have come to my attention, you have a wife who doesn't believe in a certain aspect of religion, by the way. Like that most of our matters, by the way, are matters of, there is controversy. Imam Malik says this, Abu Hanifa says this. Now the woman is of the madhab school of thought. And then the man is maybe of another school of what? Thought. Then it becomes a problem. What about marriage among the corporate class? I think it would have been okay if we are both in the corporate class, but we have seen situations whereby things are not working out. So from the Islamic perspective, as I said, you can choose to consider or you can choose not to consider. Why? In history, there has been situations whereby those issues were not considered and actually marriage was successful. Let me share with you two scenarios in history. Bilal bin Rabah, whom you all know that he was coming from Ethiopia and therefore a black. He married a sister of Abdul Rahman bin Auf, who was from the highest social class of the Quraysh. And marriage was okay. So, non-consideration here did not prevent them from enjoying their life. So it is possible. There is also another case of one of the Prophet's companions by names of Julaybib. I don't know whether my audience has ever heard about that person known as Julaybib. Julaybib was not a man who was looking fine. The books of Arabic say that kana rajulan damima, he was an ugly man. So much so that he used to be the man that could scare children on the village. You know that situation when you are still young? You are crying, so and so is going to come and eat you. You know? That used to be, by the way, with the highest due respect to him because he's a Sahabi. But I want to bring it out so that you can appreciate that sometimes non-consideration of compatibility cannot stop you from enjoying your marriage life. Now, Julaybib used to come to the Prophet, and one time the Prophet asked, "Why are you not married? You are getting low, time is running." Julaybib had a self or a personal evaluation and said, "Ya Rasulallah, whom do you think can actually accept to give me his daughter?" You know? But the companions used to have a system that any companion who used to have a daughter that has reached the marriageable age could come and consult the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They could notify him because the Prophet was the greatest guardian of all, because he was ensuring the interest of the society. So, a certain family had a daughter that was due for marriage. When they came to report to the Prophet said, "I am proposing her." You know, can you imagine the Prophet proposing from your family? The reports say that when the father came to report that to the Prophet, and the Prophet said, "I am proposing her," the man was so excited and said, "Yes, and yes times two. In other words, I have accepted. The Prophet said, "But I'm not the one proposing her. I'm proposing her on behalf of Julaybib." There the story changed. The man said, "Until I go and consult the mom." This time, because it was the Prophet proposing, there was no need to consult the mother. But because it is Julaybib, he says, "Until I go and consult the mom." Together? Now what happens is that the man goes back home and he says, "The Prophet is making a proposal in our family." The mother was also so excited. He said, "Oh yes, this is the chance we have been waiting for." The husband says, "Wait a minute. He's not proposing for himself. He's proposing for Julaybib, the one who is scaring children of the village. Don't forget that." The mother was like, "It's not possible. Who can dare give away his hand to Julaybib?" Hardly did they know that the daughter was hearing. That's when the daughter asked, "You people, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam makes a proposal and you reject it?" In some reports, it is said that even this daughter recited the verse, وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَنْ يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْحِيَرَةَ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. It is not befitting for a Muslim male believer or a female believer that when the Prophet expresses interest, the Prophet decides on a certain matter, that you have a second thought. This is the daughter, you know, and I have told you who Julaybib is. Until the daughter said, "Take me to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is it?" The Prophet asked the daughter, are you comfortable to marry Julaybib? She said, if it is your decision, Ya Rasulullah, I have no problem. They invited Julaybib, and the nikah was concluded. You know, the nikah was concluded. The Prophet made the dua. He said, Allahumma subba alayhimul khayra sabban sabba. Oh Allah, depending on the decision this young lady has taken, I pray that you give them all the good in plenty. Let the good flow to them in plenty. وَلَا تَجْعَلَ عَيْشَهُمْ كَدًّا كَدًّا. Don't bring, Ya Allah, any problem, any challenge in their life. The two lived together until the time when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam called for jihad. Julaybib went out to fight. Fortunately, he attained martyrdom. He was killed. After that, the Prophet started asking, the war is over. Are you missing someone? Let us count those who have come out of the war who are alive. Let us also count those who are dead. Are you missing, Julaybib was not among the dead. He's not among those who are alive. So the companions were like, Ya Rasulullah, everyone is here. Those who are alive are around, and those who are dead are also. We have seen them. The Prophet asked that 3 times. That, do you miss someone? We said, no. The Prophet said, وَلَكِنَّنِي أُفْقِدُ جُلَيْبِيبًا. I am missing Julaybib. I have not seen him. Meaning that he was not such a recognized person. It's not such a person that you could be missing, It's not considered, Listen to this, the end of this story, to show you how Allah can actually turn things that you could think to be bad into good. The Prophet went with the companion to search for him. They found him killed besides 7 men among the mushrikun, the non-believers, And it's like he killed the 7 until he was also overpowered and killed. The Prophet carried him in his hands. Books of history mention that the Prophet never carried anybody single-handedly apart from Julaybib. Until when he reached on his grave, and he never put his, his body down. He used to carry it until when the grave was done. He himself laid him to rest. Then the Prophet said, now, Julaybib minni wa ana minhu. I am part of Julaybib, and Julaybib is part of me. Whoever is seeking for paradise, he should seek it from the line of Julaybib. Now, the social status of the widow automatically went up. The companions now started competing on who is winning the widow. Until at the end of the day, actually, this young lady who had accepted to go with the man who was not compatible at first time, she went away with the person of the highest social status among the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. End of story. End of story. Yes. You'd have any.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, it can't miss. We are looking at Julaybib.
Yeah.
Just because we have missed the name of the lady.
The lady was not mentioned.
In the,
yeah.
And here is first of all the lesson.
Yes.
The question.
Please.
Lesson first. I think I need to convince my brothers who are not yet there that you keep your status. Somewhere, somehow, Allah is coming for you, because these sisters normally are looking for the right one. And I'm also convinced that sometimes sisters play a part in assisting the parents take the right. No, sisters play a part in helping the parents help them to take a decision. I think my statement is clear. Sisters take a part in helping the parents take a part in making these decisions.
Okay.
And now this is where the question is. Doctor, Sharia-wise, I want it Sharia-wise. One of the greatest problems we are having, and it has, since our episode 1, this question has gone on flowing, and now we are seeing it in the parents of Julaibib. What is the Sharia ruling on this? The parent has accepted, but without consulting the mother.
Okay.
Second time, the parent has accepted, but after consulting the mother.
Yeah.
Is it, of those 3 segments, is the dad, for the dad to take the decision, is he supposed to first consult the wife? Because also now it is bringing problems in homes, that the father wants the daughter to go for someone, but they are not agreeing with the mom. The father, when he consults the mom won't agree. Doctor, I think that gap, can you address it before we go to the other aspects?
Okay.
You see, Julaibib, the prophet first brings the proposal, the father accepts. When he says, Julaibib, let me first consult the mother.
Yeah.
And then the mother too, she first accepts. You first wait, I think about it.
Okay.
So doctor, what is the Sharia perspective? How is Sharia addressing itself from the aspect of the father first consulting the mom?
Okay. In our attempt to answer that query, we need to ask ourselves, whose right to consider compatibility? Whose right? Because once we address that, then your concern shall be addressed.
But doctor, my concerns are 3.
Yeah.
The lady helps the parents to help her.
Yeah.
Whose concern? Is it okay?
Yeah. Okay, that's why I said that when we address this, we shall have addressed all the concerns. Compatibility primarily is a right of 2 people. There are 2 people who are supposed to demand for it. It is the daughter or the wife or the woman is the one to demand that this man is not compatible. Look at the dignity that Islam gave a woman. You know, you have a right to say that this man is not of my status. And you identify the area. I am educated, he is not. I am this, is not. That is one. In other words, the woman is the major stakeholder, followed by the guardian. And the guardian in this case actually is the father. So those 2 cannot be ignored in demanding for compatibility. Those 2 cannot be ignored. Now what happens here is that in many cases the process starts with you. You are at a university and someone has approached you with a proposal. You take it to your father, and then the father scrutinizes that person and says that, yes, that person is compatible according to the considerations of our family. Now, where does the mother come in? Even though legally it is not demanded, but I am of the view strongly to advocate that mother shouldn't be left outside. Even if Sharia did not specify it, that the mother also has a right to accept or not, but I am of the view, looking at the contemporary setting, that the mother shouldn't be left out. Why? It is a matter concerning a daughter. Who understands the daughter more of the 2 parents? I think the mother. She spends most of the time with her. They share their feminine characters, the emotions, the psychological things, and so on and so forth. So in this case, the step starts, the decision starts with you, but don't go independent. In other words, don't deprive other stakeholders from having their right in this matter. So, it is your role to help your parents to ensure. By the way, it is like when we are in administration, I make a requisition. I take it to my boss. Then my boss forwards it. Then until it reaches the rector, and the rector makes the final approval. And my boss cannot forward it until when he's convinced that the content and whatever I'm talking about is true. So the same. So I don't see any problem with this. The problem, by the way, is from the day we disconnected from our families, this is where the challenges started from. So can we go back to that system whereby our parents get involved as early as possible? That is my view on that.
Before you go,
yes.
Before you go, actually, to the online class, please keep your questions flowing. I'll also ask Brother Gava to keep the sheets because some sisters are shy of asking. So you can keep the sheets moving. In case you have a question, you bring it. We find how to put it to Doctor. No, some don't have that. So do what? Let them get there. Now, Doctor, I know there is a sister who wants. By the way, before I ask, let her ask first. Yes, sister, you can ask. Yes, ask. It's okay. All right, the online class, we are very sorry for that because we have the physical class. Doctor, this is my question.
Okay.
I've analyzed your review regarding marriage, how you interconnect the marriage aspect from episode 1 for us to go back home.
Yeah.
Like you are sending us back home to initiate the marriage issue from our parents. Now I have a simple one. Doctor, don't you think in certain circumstances, or what is the Sharia position this in respect to the contemporary demands? Hakim, go back, tell your father. Let the father tell the mother. It's as if that's what you're advocating for. Hakim, go. No, you are advocating for the ladies, and my question was on the gents.
Yeah.
Is it also? I know some men find themselves not going back home, but is it also advisable for men also to get that line of father and again mother?
Yeah.
And lastly, on this, because I'm still looking to the Sahaba, Julaibib. Doctor, in your opinion, this one is non-Sharia. In your opinion, if I'm a husband and I'm seeing that the mother will put a lot of strings attached, you understand? Because these days the ladies are the ones who have given the fees. The fathers are just there, but when marriage comes, the ladies have to go to the fathers. Now the guy has come to meet the father, but now because the mother, she's the one who gave fees, she will put a lot of strings attached. In your opinion, can't I bypass the mother? And will I have... Because the intention I have is that if I bring the mother on board, she will bring a lot of strings attached. Okay. What is your deliberation on that?
My take on that, who is bypassing? You, the prospective husband?
The father? I'm the father to Aisha. I'm the father to Shadia, to Saidat.
Okay. So you want to ignore the role of the mother?
I didn't take the responsibility. And these days mothers have a lot of strings attached on the daughters. Okay. So, and you are saying that you must sit. As a man, I want now, because I am the guardian Sharia-wise, I want to bypass it. Okay. What's your take, Dr. Hafiz?
My take is that if you choose to do it, you do it at your own risk.
Okay.
Yeah. If you choose to do it, you do it at your own. By the way, you rather engage her at an early stage before you get disorganization at a later stage. But I also want to emphasize, as far as Sharia is concerned, it's not an obligation to consult her. But put yourself in her position. A person who has, first she's the one who delivered, and shall get the respect that Islam gave to the mother. Now you want to sideline or to bypass her. at a later stage, if she happens to discover a certain aspect, a certain character that is not okay, how are you going to face her? You know, that's why I'm emphasizing that you rather engage her at an early stage so that you can agree to disagree. And by the way, if you do not agree, this is not the only man on earth. You know? Rather than creating a situation of hell at home because the father is no longer greeting the mother simply because of a person who came with a proposal. That is my take. Now, on the side of men, I had even made it in the previous discussions, it is not obligatory that when Hafiz is going to marry, he consults or he seeks approval from the father. But as you know, there is no way you can live away your family. Why don't you bring them on board so that they are also comfortable with it? After all, the moment I marry, the father says, Mukamwana, isn't it? That is my son's wife. Do you want this father to welcome someone at whereby he had no any stake, he was not aware which family, which what, and so on? So, morally speaking, we shouldn't, even women, we have a moral obligation to inform our fathers.
Part of the reasons why we have this program is to integrate the Sharia with the contemporary demands.
True, exactly.
My question is here, from the episode 1 up to this episode 6, we have not yet done the nikah.
Exactly. That's
and
the good
somewhere
thing.
I'm seeing you now as if, actually the question is, will this be zina or won't it be that the parents are encouraging haram? Because me and sister, let me use a name, any sister X, doctor,
Yes.
you want the parents to be seated, to be discussing about a proposal I put to them, them encouraging me, going into details of how the man will be, the compatibility nature. What if now they find when the compatibility is incompatible? Doctor, the aspect of, you know, we need to ask these real questions.
You know,
What is the Sharia perspective?
you are actually trying to look at it as if it is an academic research at master's level.
It's contemporary.
Yes, you are looking at, you know, evaluating a man to be compatible is like an academic research of a master's or PhD. That you have to go to the field, collect the data, write the proposal, do what. But I have ever made a statement that in many situations, people whom we get married to are, you know, some are within our vicinities, others are not. I don't believe that searching for the compatible characters or behaviors should actually even take a week. But I will emphasize that more when I am looking at the essential element of marriage, that is the role of the guardian. You know? The role of the guardian, and it is coming very soon. So let's proceed here by saying that some have worked, some have not. I am aware of some couples where at the beginning actually could say, these ones, we have surrendered them to Allah because we know they are not going to work. It's not going to work out. But at the end of the day, it worked out. What is my take on these optional considerations? Just understand the objective of marriage. Let's focus on the objective. Understand your role. And also the most important actually is, forget about your social status and understand that you are now in an institution. Once you appreciate that, chances are high that even if you did not consider the compatibility issues, you will progress. Okay, let me look at the second category of compatibility, the compulsory. I told you that you will allow me use my own approach. To me, the second is the negative compatibility, or it is the compulsory or necessary compatibility. In other words, you have no choice but to consider it. I am going to look at 3 areas, but in the interest of time, I think we are only going to address 2. 1, single or the sex of the partner. Let me make this statement louder. There shall never be a situation in Islam where single-sex marriage will be accepted. You know, sometimes we take it for granted, but there is a lot of wisdom when Allah says, وَأَنَّهُ خَلَقَ الزَّوْجَيْنِ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى. There is a lot of wisdom there. So we shouldn't take it for granted in our marriage discussions. Because you know what is taking place in the so-called civilized countries, that we are witnessing a woman and a fellow woman walking into a church so that their marriage can be contracted and solemnized. So in Islam, that one be on a very clear ink. There shall never be a situation whereby same-sex marriage will be approved. It's not acceptable in Islam. So, you are not compatible to your fellow lady, you are not compatible to your fellow man. Full stop. Why? It defeats the marriage objective. The primary objective of marriage is procreation. And with this, it is not possible. The second, incompatibility, which I want to end with my discussion, it is pregnancy. Pregnancy. This question has come several times. What is the Islamic position on marrying or conducting nikah with a pregnant woman? To me, I want to address this as an incompatibility, and we see what are the scholarly views about it. And because the moderator always wants my take, I will give you my take. A pregnant woman is not compatible for marriage according to the majority of scholars. At any moment you discover that your choice of marriage is pregnant, according to the majority of scholars, you are not allowed to proceed. Don't proceed with the proposal. Don't even proceed with the marriage. Because she's having a certain burden, and until that burden is set off, that's when you can proceed. But we can go into some details. If this pregnant woman is a divorcee, or she's a widow, the verse in Surah At-Talaq is clear. وَأُولَاتُ الْأَحْمَالِ أَجَلُهُنَّ أَنْ يَضَعْنَ حَمْلَهُنَّ. Those who are found to be pregnant, they should wait to contract another marriage until when they lay off their burdens. Another proof or another evidence. It is a very interesting evidence in respect to marriage to pregnant women. The hadith that is narrated by Ruwayfi' ibn Thabit, he says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لا يحل لامرئ يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر. It is not lawful for a man who believes in Allah and the last day أن يسقي ماءه زرع غيره, to water what another person has sown. It is not lawful for a man who believes in Allah and the last day to irrigate the crops of the other. I think that's the language that brings it out better. That's it. And the hadith is narrated by Abi Dawud and Tirmidhi. Why? Farmers know the impact of irrigation on crops. You know, there are many factors. The soil itself and even the irrigation. You know? That's why Imam Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, he made a very interesting statement. When you marry a pregnant woman and straightforward you go into conjugal rights, he said that the ears actually might be as a result of the irrigation. In other words, the one who planted it is someone else, and then as a result of your irrigation as the man, because you are having sexual intercourse, the ears might resemble you, or the eyes might resemble you. That is the statement of Imam Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah. Okay? Another hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam one time went to a certain battle, and they had some female captives or slave women, and they were distributed among the companions as it was the custom by then. You know? Some of them were pregnant, others were not. And the Prophet announced at the loudest of his voice and said, "La tuta'u hamilun hatta tadha." Please don't go ahead to have any sexual affair with those who are pregnant until when they give birth. And those whom you cannot establish whether they are pregnant or not, give them time until they experienced at least one mens. This is also another proof to show that you are not allowed to commit marriage with a pregnant woman. Another one, which is actually so strong, the hadith is narrated by Abi Darda. He said that one time the Prophet was in a certain tent. They brought a woman who was pregnant. And one of the companions was like, "I am interested in having marriage with her." The hadith says that the Prophet said, "Laqad hamamtu an al'anahu." I intended to curse him, to curse that man who is interested in marrying the pregnant woman. La'anan yadkhulu ma'ahu qabrahu. That I curse him so that he can go in his grave with that kind of curse. You know? Those are all proof to that effect. Before we could proceed, one could ask, why is it prohibited to marry a pregnant woman? I know the discussion has details, but we shall come to them. One, it is confusing the issue of paternity, which is actually the primary objective of marriage. You don't know, is it your child or it is not? You know? Because you might think that the child belongs to the first man, but maybe along the way the woman experienced some kind of miscarriage which was not noticeable, and later actually it was your pregnancy. So there is that confusion. Women locally here, they know what they call olubuto okuyikako. You can call it incomplete miscarriage. You know? It's like the miscarriage has started, then she's rushed to doctors, and the doctors try to rescue the situation. Now, if she's under another man, maybe the other man is going to make complementary roles so that actually the pregnancy can now be complete. So there is going to be a problem with establishing the paternity of that particular child. That's why Islamically it is not acceptable. So thank you for preempting my presentation. That's where I'm coming. Now, suppose you console yourself that it is actually my pregnancy. Okay? If there are some circumstantial evidence relating to that, still I will go by the opinion of the majority that you should not go ahead and make nikah when she's still pregnant, because of another reason why it is prohibited. In many cases, according to my experience and observation, there is no free consent in that situation. when a young man had an affair with a young woman that culminated into pregnancy, they rush. Let's try to go and make nikah so that we can cover up with this shame, isn't it? That's what takes place. Yet one of the cardinal principles of nikah is free consent. So in this case, it is more of acting under undue influence. It is more of some aspects of coercion, and so on. And by the way, from experience, such marriages have not lasted. I have a serious case which I have ever handled here at campus some many years ago. You know, a certain teacher was in a certain school, and there was a young woman who was the bursar. You know, then they had sexual affairs, of course, outside marriage. You know, and then it culminated into pregnancy. For sure, it was not an intended pregnancy. Now, to cover up the shame, the family of the woman, of this lady, demanded that this man should make nikah, and he had no choice. So they finalized the nikah so that the child can be born into a legitimate relationship. You know? After that, they stayed together. The man got an opportunity to go outside for these, further studies, working and so on. As soon as the man came back, he demanded for divorce. The woman was like, what have I done? When they came to me, the man confessed and said, Doctor, I did not consent. It wasn't my free consent. It was just because I was under pressure. So, if it is affecting free consent, still I go by the opinion of the majority that please, let us wait. Let her deliver so that we can actually test, the seriousness, the commitment of these people. Then at the end of the day, if they choose to go ahead, let them go ahead. Okay? Now I want to appeal to your concern. And I want to call upon young men. Stop consoling yourself that this is my pregnancy, I'm responsible, therefore let me take it on. When scholars were addressing this, they said that if this woman managed to accept to undress herself before you without the legal permission from Islam, then it is also possible that she might have had a sexual affair with another man who is actually not presentable, but it is you whom she can present to the family because you had a relationship. And this is also possible, because, seriously speaking, what is taking place? Presentable men like you, like others, their wallets are not sounding. You can see him smart with the tie, with the suit, but really in terms of footing the bills, it's not okay. Isn't it? But down there, there is a person who is doing these menial jobs, maybe washing cars or what. His wallet is okay. So as she's passing around, of course she loves you because you are the presentable guy. Okay? But you cannot, settle her needs. The consolation from sisters is like, I can take him on, that man, but I'm not going to go far with him. I'm just getting money from him. But at one moment, she can land into his trap. And she might be so unfortunate that that very one time actually leads into pregnancy. But remember, she's also in courtship or in dating with a university student who is presentable. And they're having even some affairs. So should she be asked who is responsible? Whom do you think she's going to present to the family?
The presentable.
The presentable. So you are consoling yourself that after all also on such and such a day I had this and that, At the end of the day you might be actually leading to the confusion of parentage. So that is it. However,
What is your take?
I am about to make my take because even time is not on our side. Let's look at the second view, the contemporary view. Some scholars have diverted from the traditional view of the majority and allowed having or concluding marriage with a pregnant woman. Okay? There are some few scholars who allowed that. And they made a condition to that. One, we must establish that the parentage is for this man who is responsible. That is one. Okay? In other situations, they also conditioned it that this man should postpone consummation or sexual affairs until delivery. These are 2 points. Their justifications are Islam calls for covering the mistakes of others. Seriously speaking, it might have been a slight mistake. You know, I have ever been amidst such, you know, and that's why when I come to my take, it is a case by case. I was once confronted with the case of a woman, a young lady, who in my eyes was so modest because I have been teaching her at university. You know, I was observing her in first year until she graduated. After graduation, she actually came and phoned me and said, "Doctor, I am dead." I said, "But I see you are alive. Why are you saying that you are dead?" He said, "I am dead." I said, "What is it?" He said, "I have been dating a certain man. Okay? The man lives up country. And she's living from the western part of Uganda. So, she made a plan to go and visit him, then come back. So, she took a bus from western Uganda, landed in Kampala, then she took another one to northern Uganda. Along the way, the bus had a mechanical fault. She had no choice but to sleep over there. You know, the confirmation of the prophet is hadith. Whenever 2 members of opposite sex isolate, the third one is who? Shaitan. Shaitan defeated them. It was her first sexual encounter, according to her revelation, and it led into pregnancy. You know? But this is a woman who is a role model in the entire family. And even the father and the mother are like telling the siblings, "Why are you not like her? Why are you not like her?" Look at that situation. She came to me and said, "Doctor, this man is ready for nikah. What is your position?" Are we together? So, it might be a case by case. In order to cover up the victimization, you know, bastardization of the child, you know, concealing the wrong. And even some scholars are saying, okay, if we don't allow this man who is responsible for the pregnancy to marry, who is going to shoulder this burden? You want to take her to the family? The father is saying, "Don't ashame us. We don't want you here with your pregnancy." So where is she going to be? That's why the scholars advocate that in order to cover up this wrong and so on and so forth, let it be a case by case. But my statement is, I don't want to open a door that is going to be difficult for us to close. Because every person shall be coming under that guise, something of that kind. My take in conclusion, young ladies, young men, Sharia calls for uncompromised modesty. You know, protect yourself, safeguard yourself as far as possible, as long as you are not yet married. Okay? So, you need to safeguard your privacy without compromise. Also, another issue is, try as much as possible to seek knowledge before you act. Most of the cases we get concerning this question is when people have already landed in the mistake. Why don't you ask before you land into the mistake? Okay? Ideally, pregnant women should wait until they deliver, so that after delivery, they can contract another what? Another marriage. Why? As I said, this is going to test, the seriousness, the commitment, and in this case, they shall be with their free consent and their commitment to go into marriage. That is my take. Finally, on this point, it is a case by case. It can be referred to the Qadi. It might be referred to the Imam. Having said that, that is only one of the aspects of negative compatibility pregnancy. And inshallah, in our next episode, we are going to look at the other aspect. Those are the women who are prohibited from marriage. In other words, don't even think about them because they are not compatible. Inshallah, we shall also address, is it allowed, like in Islam, we have our customs here. If I am coming from the same totem that they call Muziro, I'm not allowed to marry any person sharing any woman of the same totem because she's like my sister. Likewise, any person who is having the totem of my mother, I'm not allowed to marry her because she's my mother. What is the Islamic perspective on considering that? Inshallah, it will be our discussion, and I beg to end here. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, and both the physical and the virtual audience. I want to combine the two questions. One from Brother Gava regarding the responsibility of the guardian, because as we know these days, some men have ignored or neglected their responsibility. They have left the responsibility, including the financial one, in the hands of the mothers. Now, do these negligent men qualify to be guardians? I think that's the question. And this is coupled with the first question.
From Sula.
Yeah. Under which circumstances can a mother be a guardian in marriage? Scholars have identified some cases whereby the mother can actually be the guardian. Guardianship is a responsibility. Okay? Because this responsibility requires investigating the prospective husband, that is why Sharia placed this responsibility to the father. Because the father can do a better job as compared to the mother. But in the situation of necessity, the mother can come out. Especially that the mother we have today is exposed. The mother we have today is the one who is taking care of this and that. There is no that religious objection for the mother to carry out the role of the guardian. But there is a hikmah why it was placed on the shoulders of males. Now, coming to your question, if the man has not taken his responsibility, especially the financial ones, that one shouldn't automatically deprive him of his right to be the guardian. Why am I saying that? First, have you investigated the reason why he's not taking that responsibility? Because sincerely speaking, he might not be having. He's not well off financially. Now, is it like the slogan, Omwavu wa kufa, let the poor one die? Should it be like that? No. I think this is an area where we have to help each other. I might have not carried out my financial responsibility, but in terms of ideas, in terms of opinions, I am okay. Now, the fact that I am ignored, I'm not doing well on this side, you should not take it, in a whole, and therefore you say, after all, you did not pay for fees, and therefore you are not supposed to also to make any contribution in this kind of guardianship. Therefore, let it stay. Otherwise, this is one of the reasons why some women are getting out of marriages. Because she feels financially I'm okay, says that, what is your role? What is your role as a husband? It is not all that. Even the family where you were as a woman, you had money. But what you were missing is this man. So you have got him. So in other words, my point is clear that even if the man has not carried out his responsibility, please don't deprive him to play a role. Maybe financially it's okay, you are even the one who is going to prepare the wedding, the introduction, but the man can help in one way or another. But also, I must quickly add, if you know as a man that financially you are not okay, devise some other means where you can help. Women are understanding. If, for instance, you are not paying for fees, but you are a good driver, you are the ones who is driving the children to school, to and from, she can appreciate that and say, after all, he drives the what? The children. But you don't have the money, you stay asleep the whole day, you don't do this. Now, what do you expect? You are dealing with a fellow human being. So, guardianship shouldn't be deprived just by me and not taking responsibility. I might not be taking responsibility, but when it comes to this, by the way, anyway, I will talk about this later when I'm discussing guardianship. It is on this point why the scholar said that even if the guardian is fasiq, fasiq is a wrongdoer in the community, he's known of committing some wrongs, he should not be deprived of his role in guardianship, because his wrongdoing might not affect his interest for his daughter to have a best companion. Up to that, but we shall discuss that in details. The name of the female, for the companion, as I said, the name actually is not even presented in the hadith. The story is narrated as that. It is more popular and more common with Julaybib. They don't mention the lady. Arranged marriages, Can I withdraw? The father has arranged a marriage with a certain family, or two families have met. Can I withdraw? Can I change my position? You have a right. What I see here is that you are caught in a situation of obedience and loyalty to parents, okay? And your personal freedom and right, isn't it? I don't know whether the answer I'm going to give you will be satisfactory, but let me just give you a simple scenario, so that you can go and sort yourself. A certain young man had a problem with decision making. He wanted to go and study in Egypt, where the mother was, okay? But the father was living in Iraq. The father was like, don't go to Egypt for study. The mother was like, come to Egypt and study. He went to consult a certain scholar. The young man is living with the father in Iraq, and the mother is saying, come and study in Egypt. So he's caught in a confusion of the two. Whom should I obey and whom should I disobey? Together, when he went to the scholar made a simple answer. He said, "Ati' abak wala ta'aswi ummak." Obey your father, but don't disobey your mother. Obey your father, but don't disobey. Obeying and disobeying, I'm sorry, this is Arabic. But can't you find a way of upholding your right by pleasing your parents? Can't you really? Now, if you can't find it, Sharia has given you a right to walk out of this arrangement because it is your wife. Are we together? But try as much as possible not to dent your relationship with your parents simply because of this woman. Because after all, you don't have guarantee that things are going to work out or they're not going to work out. So it goes back to you to see how do you play around with it so that you liberate yourself because it's your right, but at the same time also keep a good relationship with your parents. Okay, first marriages, okay? The question was...
It was
actually yes. Yeah, the question was...
Should I obey them?
Yeah, that one I have addressed. But here the question was, it is because of the too much conditions by the parents that are making these young women to contract pregnancies so that they can say, if you are still there, I'm even what? Pregnant. The response to that is, never allow the haram to justify the halal. Don't allow committing haram to justify the what? The halal. Because there is even a Sharia principle which says a good intention does not make haram halal. Because your intention is that you want to marry, but people are making some, resistance. Therefore, you have a good intention. But a good intention in Sharia does not make a haram what? Halal. And that's why the emphasis actually should go back to the family, whereby how can they sit so that they iron out all these kind of what? Inconsistencies. The question of Brother Musungule is very hectic, and I excuse myself, I cannot answer it now. I will do further research about it, then I will address it on the position of knowledge, inshallah ta'ala. The woman who is abroad, who is asking that she wants to make a court marriage,
For green card.
For green card. I think it is a fake marriage. Just because she wants to get a green card. Isn't it?
Yes.
But it has a very big, a very serious impact. First of all, the person whom you have made this marriage with, okay? On the surface, he has a right over you. That is one. Two, you are committing another wrong because you are a woman, you are a wife of someone. And according to Sharia, it is prohibited to contract any marriage as long as you are still serving another marriage. Okay? A similar case has taken place in my Directorate of Sharia and Legal Services at Chibuli. A certain man wanted his daughters and sons to go outside Uganda, and the requirement was they have to go as marrieds. So brother A procured a marriage certificate as married to the sister. Are we together? So brother, sister, but they have a marriage certificate that they are married. They succeeded, they went. Now the sister has gotten a suitable man to marry her. And they first of all have to cancel the first what? The first marriage. Look at that kind of complication. To me, I think material gains should not make us reach to that extent. Let us be contented with the small that we have, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide for us from the legal and lawful means. Surrogacy, inshallah, we shall address that. It is under a big topic of assisted reproductive technologies, the Sharia perspective. The in vitro, the in vivo, fertilization, and so on. Inshallah, we shall address that. Finally, the lady who was deceived, and she found out that the man is saying that you are number this, yet actually she is not. As far as Sharia is concerned, she has a right to ask for divorce. But she needs to be calculative. One of the mistakes our sisters commit is that you run from polygamy and you go for polygamy. You are saying that I cannot allow this man, to marry another person. But chances are high that when you run from this polygamous relationship, you land into another polygamous relationship. So you have to weigh options. Which of the two polygamous relationship is better? Wallahu alam. Allah knows better. Jazakallahu khair.
Doctor, but do we have some Qadi courts in this country?
We have Qadi courts in this country, and the one before you is manning one as a Chief Justice.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. It has been a pleasure. Really, we are 10 minutes late. From the team, especially the Kampala campus ICT team, the MWIMA, the Al Hidayah Media team, thank you very much, Al Hidayah Media team. Saluh Media team, thank you very much. And also, Brother Mohsin, it has been a pleasure and we welcome you to be part of this project, inshallah, because our natural aim is to contribute to the society by looking at marriage as the contemporary issue. Sisters, thank you very much. We have sisters from Nigeria. Thank you very much to be part of us. Sisters from Uganda, Banamasaka, thank you very much for being part of us. Till next Thursday, inshallah. For those whose questions we have not taken, we shall get them. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursalin. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.